I looked after my parents for quite a time when they were old, and my grandmother as well. But I did it by going out to work and getting someone else to clean the house. Right? But he decided he would pack in. Now, the first thing Major did as a political action, he joined the Conservative Party, became very enthusiastic. And you've got to be boneheaded to do that. And he then proceeded to set himself up and got himself nominated to be a councillor in a ward. I think it's Wandsworth. But in that area, you have to live in the ward in order to stand as councillor. And so he produced a form, signed it, and gave his address, which was within the ward, and he somehow got himself elected. It's subsequently been found that this house that he said he lived in is still lived in by the same resident for the last 50-odd years. Certainly before, she's a woman in her 80s, well before Major was born. And they've been to her on TV and said, did he ever live here? And she says, no. Do you know him? No. When they showed him a photograph, she said, I've never seen him in my life, and he's the Prime Minister. You see? And so his first political action was a forgery. Now, he could be taken to court for that and prosecuted. And if I make money out of this and become a millionaire, I'm going to do it. No, because it's time somebody taught politicians in Britain that they are bound by the law, like anybody else. It's time somebody straightened them up. So when you talk to me about John Major, I don't want to know. You know, if ever a man shouldn't be, it's him. He's a complete lying fraud. And I don't think he's going to do any good for Britain. I think he's worse than Thatcher, and that's a little bit like saying, you know, worse than Genghis Khan or something, you know, from the outside. Because that woman will go down subsequently, when people come to write the histories, as the biggest disaster ever to hit the British Isles.
Can you imagine selling the water rights to a private company that jacks the price up and can charge anything they want with a monopoly, or the power company?
We, as a people, used to own the electric companies. We, as a people, used to own the gas companies and the water companies. We owned them. They belonged to the nation. And they were damn good. You know? And to sell them off privately and to allow foreign investors to buy large lumps of it is beyond belief.
To buy a monopoly, and then they can charge anything they want. The first thing, 30% jump in the cost.
Yeah. And electric prices went up 46% in 15 months. And I wonder how we can afford to live there. And the result is now, I told you when I first met you, I think, all of a sudden over there, people are now finally saying, do we need this damn monarchy? Because the attack is focusing onto something, and it's swinging around to focus on them, you see. And the ruling elite needs the monarchy. They need the puppet, the theatre, to mesmerise people with this. I mean, people sell magazines over here of Fergie and Diana. And Diana's a redundant school teacher, a long, skinny, gawky piece, a nice lady, nice person. There's no doubt about that, but you pass her in the street. The other one's a fat little dumpy person with apparently no personality, no manners, and so on. And she's the horse trainer's daughter. So one's a redundant school teacher, and the other's a horse trainer's daughter. And this family is covering themselves with, I mean, the Queen's sister, Margaret, ran around with Bodney Llewellyn for about 12 years, in front of her husband, a man 10 years her junior. And finally there was the inevitable divorce. It should have happened earlier. Charles' sister, the Queen's daughter, Anne, had the same sort of performance with her husband, and finally there's a divorce there. Charles Windsor, his marriage with this Diana is obviously, it's on the rocks whether you like it or not. And he doesn't know how to behave himself. His younger brothers had a disaster with this silly woman that he married, this Fergie they call her, and her lecherous father. Well, there's no credit to anybody. And it's whitewashed in films over here, you know. That was photographed in and out of all the massage parlours and brothels of London. And the whole gang of them, Mountbatten, who got himself blown up, had the largest collection of pornography that you could imagine. Was a complete weirdo. This is not generally known, you know. It was a professional collection of pornographic material. A whole lot of them in disarray, aren't they? And now you've got books being published showing that George V was the second son of Edward VIII, and why didn't Edward, the eldest son of Edward VIII, become king in 1908? Oh, was it 1912 or something? And everybody says, oh yeah, he was the eldest son, why didn't he become king? He said, what happened to him? And he had him locked away somewhere in some castle in Scotland with the Bowes-Lyon family, I told you. And so the whole thing stinks. So the present queen shouldn't be queen. The guy living in Paris should be king. And I think they're in trouble. I think they're in desperate trouble. So I can see why anything that we say might actually shake the whole jelly-like edifice. I think so. Wouldn't be very pleasant, would it?
Not for the queen.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, they started this battle with us, if you can call it that, in that we didn't know any of this when we started up. We were just looking for King Arthur. That's all. We just looking for King Arthur. You know? And they could have played it a different way and styled it a different way. Anyway, enough of them. But Major.
Okay, if we want to do something for Diane Sawyer, what did you have in mind exactly? Anything you know exactly?
What does she want? What does she want to know? What's she going to do her program on?
I
What
think
is she gonna
inscriptions. I think that's the important part, the alphabet. And I think that the statement that we need from Alan is that there is an alphabet, that this alphabet appears to have been that alphabet of the Welsh-speaking Indians, which was well documented. An alphabet that was discovered and identified by Schoolcroft, who later became ethnology director. They knew it was British. They knew that it was had at least 14 old British characters and maybe 12 characters that were Iberian. That should have told him right there, but he didn't write to anybody. He simply he didn't write to the Welsh. He wrote to Copenhagen, and he wrote to France. They identified it as an alphabet, and he wrote to several places of the Mediterranean and Europe. And then, unfortunately, they got him so confused that it was totally thrown out in history. But that alphabet and that inscription was there in 1840s, found in 1828. In 89 was when we identified the fact that this alphabet was an alphabet of the Brits, and that it was the alphabet used by the Welsh-speaking Indians. And then Alan comes into the picture because he starts translating the inscriptions that we have, and we have now over 40 inscriptions on this continent using this same alphabet. And Alan is tied. Tell him about that, Alan. You're tied to an alphabet and to a language, and you can't.
Well, what we've got is an impeccably authentic alphabet, which I've demonstrated amply elsewhere. It traces back 3,000 years into the Middle East. The sources of proof are multiple, in other words, hundreds. We know that these people, we knew by 83 these people had come to America. So we weren't surprised to find the alphabet here. It translates perfectly in that there are stones in America which have the alphabet upon them. We apply the cipher to it, which we have. We know which letter of the alphabet applies to which sign. We get coherent, legible, sensible results. So we know that these people, whoever they were using A, the old British alphabet, and B, it's in the Cymric language. They were speaking Cymric Welsh.